We passed out, and we should have placed at the back of the room, a summary of the input we received on the EIR, and I wanted to start there.
Okay, this is a two-page little, I think it's 2 pages, maybe it's 3 pages, little document called Delta Plan Draft Program EIR, Summary of Comment Process, Comment Volume, and Commentor Type. Okay?
Yes. We closed comments, as you recall, on the 2nd of February at midnight, and we got around 200 comments that are listed here. And we had we had exactly, I think, 44 people testify at the public hearings. We received over 5,000 pages, and I've heard different reports about whether it was 5,100. This report says 5,100, but even in this they told me it was approximate. Yesterday someone told me it was 5,300. So we have a number of pages of responses, so we have a lot of material to get through. That's frankly a little bit more than I expected, and it's more of a challenge than we expected it was going to be. So one of the things that falls out of that is we're going to recommend that we not have our council meeting on the 23rd and 24th, because we wanted to be able to come in and say, here are the major points, the major themes, and bring that to you along with our summary of the comments on the 5th draft and along with the information that we'll get from this meeting today. So just for everyone's information, this volume of comments is large, and there are substantive comments, and it's going to take us some time to work our way through them. It does not change the fact that we're still planning to finish the Delta Plan sometime this spring.
And these communications will be posted on the website when?
They will. They'll be posted today. I won't guarantee that they're already posted because.
Well, wait a minute. I thought there was some problem with some of the documents not being in electronic format or submission of formats that are electronic that nobody can read.
What I meant to say was this document that's handed out here will be posted immediately. The 200-odd comment letters will be posted, but we have had a couple of them that were over 1,000 pages. So it's taking.
With my understanding, we are scanning the documents, most of the documents, in order to convert them to an electronic format. Footnote, perhaps we might consider an imposition of electronic format. I note that many interest groups opposed that when we talked about adoption of our temporary rules, feeling that it was an undue burden on them to do so. We'll come back to that issue. Joe, I don't want to. Well, I'm going to say it. I've never run into a promise to post a lot of complicated material that was ever done easily or on an announced date. But I just want to clarify. We will post all the comments, but you want, as I understand it, you want to collect them. You want to standardize the format. You want to make them all electronic. I think that's what you want to do.
We want to make them all electronic, and we want anybody to be able to see, well, here's the list of commentors, and be able to link to any specific comment that was received. And we have a backlog. At the last meeting, you may remember, we talked about the fact that DWR had submitted to us their maps of Delta Islands and the levee conditions on each island in the Delta. We have not even been able to get that entirely posted. We've posted the 2 summary maps, which are included in the packet today. But those other maps, we have technical difficulties. So we will get both of those things posted as soon as we can work through the technical issues.
And I know later in the agenda when we talk about the flood, the levee maps in the Delta that have been prepared by the Department of Water Resources, you'll give a report on the status of that, plus the complications of posting them, and whether they can be interactive or not, all the other stuff that goes with it. Yeah. I just make one other addition. I think this is a very interesting, just a preliminary look at the process stuff. I'll just say on behalf of all those categorized as interest groups and utilities, they will undoubtedly all say that they intend to be described instead as stout-hearted public spokespersons for eternal truth or some comparable identity. But I don't think you have to change this summary. It seems to me to be a reasonable representation. Okay.
So that's what's going on with the EIR. It's actually, I think we're going to learn significant things from the process. At least I hope we do. It's a lot of work to go through, and my expectation is we will learn from the process. Okay. With that, I'm going to ask, I'm going to first mention that we're not going to do a legislative update because not much has changed in the 2 weeks it's been since our last meeting, but I did want Chris to do a legal update.
Thank you. Very quickly, you had asked for a brief update on the two big types of cases we've been following, the so-called biological opinion cases, one set dealing with salmon, one set dealing with Delta smelt. And so first I'd like to thank our good friends at the Department of Water Resources, their legal department, Lawrence and Michelle, and their chief counsel, Kathy Crothers, for putting up with my hounding to get information. They're obviously heavily involved in these cases, very busy, but they've always been kind enough to provide details. So without getting into a lot of the scheduling details, I'll just tell you that both sets of cases now involve similar types of issues. They're not exactly the same. They're not on exactly the same time frame. But they both involve remands, which means that the court has decided that the biological opinions were violative of various portions of the Administrative Procedures Act or the Endangered Species Act, and basically told the federal government to go redo them. So they're in various stages of remand. The smelt cases are actually ahead of the salmon cases. The smelt case, mid-December, Fish and Wildlife actually transmitted to the Bureau of Reclamation a new draft biological opinion with regard to smelt. So they're ahead of the salmon remand schedule, which is going to take several years. The judge agreed to a schedule whereby Reclamation would issue its record of decision by April of 2016. So they're just getting started with the remand process there. In the meantime, important for us is both cases now are on appeal to the Ninth Circuit. The smelt cases again are ahead in schedule. They've been briefed, and I'm not sure what the oral argument schedule, if it's been set, what that is yet. But the salmon case, there has been at least one, what they call notice of appeal, that was filed by NRDC in the salmon set of cases. So we'll hear appeals on both of those on the merits. In the meantime, behind the scenes, they're working to redo the biological opinions according to remand schedules.
And is it, am I correct that Judge O'Neill in Fresno has taken over for Judge Wanger on these cases?
That's right. Okay. So again, thanks to DWR, and we'll be hounding them again in the future, and I appreciate their patience and consideration, as do you, I assume. Okay. One other note, we had reported several months back on the Department of Fish and Game's decision to try to join a lawsuit on the Corps' levy policies, and I get most of my good information by reading the SAC-B, as to most people, but Matt Weiser had an article that showed up yesterday or today that because of procedural problems, the Department of Fish and Game wasn't able to join that original lawsuit. Instead, what they've done is they've issued a 60-day notice of intent to sue the Corps on its own under the Federal Endangered Species Act. Same issues. The article notes, as we had reported in the past, that Fish and Game had tried to negotiate with the Corps over its concerns, variance policies, what have you. The State Department of Resources was on record and is quoted in this article as also opposing the Corps' policy, saying that research had repeatedly shown that trees and vegetation actually help strengthen levees in certain cases. But in any event, Fish and Game is going to try another approach to take on the Corps' policy, and we'll see where that goes and monitor it for you as well. So that is it. I will turn it back to Joe.
And that's, I see a question from the council.
Ms. Gray.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt your report, but I know you're not giving a legislative update, but I do have a question on one piece of legislation, the SB 834, the Wolf Bill. It was vetoed by the governor. Will it be reintroduced this session, or what's kind of going to happen to that one?
Mr. Miller will come forward and predict the future. Mr. Miller.
Whether she will introduce the bill again or not, I don't know. But the deadline for introduction is next week for this session, so we'll be monitoring introductions until then and find out if it comes back. With a veto already in hand, I kind of doubt that she would, but I'm not privy to her decision making.
Okay, but you can let us know.
Sure.
One or the other.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you.
Although, depending on whether or not there is any action taken on the bond issue, it wouldn't shock me to find a whole bunch of people scurrying to add or subtract things from a decision to delay or otherwise modify the bond, to add school funding, health care funding, or other legislation. That's usually where people think of the opportunity.
And there are intense efforts amongst the parties to try and see if they can do something now to negotiate changes to the current bond. At least some parties, and some other parties don't want changes to the bond. So there's lots of talk about all of that in the legislature and amongst the stakeholders, but no consensus about what's likely to happen.
Just one other question. There are a number of bills that's a watch status. What's the kind of the reason why we take that status on a number of them? Sorry.
We like to keep Mr. Miller out of trouble. That's one of the reasons. So he has to watch a lot of bills.
I'm not leaving after this one. And the question is on the watch bills?
Yeah, a number of them that we're watching.
Well, they're watch and see if they cause any harm or any benefit as time goes by.
Pursuant to the old saw, we also serve who stand and watch.
Yeah, and it's just to keep track of them.
Yeah, just keep track.
Since the council doesn't formally take positions on legislation, usually most of them are tagged watch, or they're tagged with a code that the governor's office instructs us to use for requests that they've made. Those are tagged NARs.
Yeah. My recollection is we've taken positions on two bills in 21 months or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did take a position on 834, right? Support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
we did, yeah. What's NAR?
No analysis required. The governor sends us requests to do analyses, and I write back. It doesn't affect council operations or have any water-related policy implications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That'd be a thing like a health care bill affecting foresters or something like that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.